To celebrate the 60th anniversary, we're looking back on the best and worst of Doctor Who's first 60 years. Now, we've already looked at some of the most hated classic stories, which will be linked somewhere down below, but now it's time to look at the cream of the crop. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Who Culture here with the 10 greatest classic Doctor Who stories. Number 10, The War Machines. It's not a huge stretch to suggest that without the War Machines, there would be no unit. The Dalek invasion of Earth is great, but it takes place long after the villains have succeeded in conquering a future Earth. The War Machines is the first Doctor Who story that brings the threat to the audience's doorstep. New companions, Polly and Ben, are the most contemporary companions since Ian and Barbara, and the story centres around the latest addition to the London skyline. It's a bracingly modern Hartnell serial that truly represents the crucial moment where Doctor Who fully broke away from its stuffy educational remit. It's an attempt to move with the times and ground Doctor Who in the swinging 60s. It's also the last great performance by the ailing William Hartnell. As he stares down an advancing war machine in the third episode's cliffhanger, there is absolutely no doubt that it's the Doctor who is the true hero of the show. The War Machines establishes the template for Doctor Who's contemporary Earth invasion stories, a format that it continues to follow to this day. One of the most obvious links is the Bells of St. John, which also features a nefarious artificial intelligence taking over a new London landmark. Number 9, The Tomb of the Cybermen. The story goes that when the Tomb of the Cybermen was recovered from Hong Kong in the early 90s, fans were bitterly disappointed that the story didn't live up to their astronomical expectations from the production stills and the target novelisation. Over 30 years later, we can appreciate this story for the stone-cold classic that it truly is. The Tomb of the Cybermen gives a mystique to the titular villains that Doctor Who continues to trade on. It also boasts one of Patrick Troughton's best ever performances in the lead role, as he fails to suppress his curiosity and throws himself headlong into working out the secrets of the tomb. It also has one of the very best scenes in Doctor Who, in which the Second Doctor and Victoria talk about their families. Our lives are different to anybody else's. Who says Russell T Davies invented emotion in Doctor Who? There's also some brilliantly evocative location work in a Doctor Who quarry and a guest cast of square-jawed heroes and cackling villains. It's an utter joy, and at the BFI screening back in 2013, Stephen Moffat reflected that this is the type of story that his era tried to remake every week. You can't say fairer than that. Number 8, Kinder. Kinder is the best Doctor Who serial in Peter Davison's entire era, and it may even be the greatest serial of all time. Just ask Dalek writer Robert Shearman. It's unnerving and weird in a way that Doctor Who very rarely is. It also proves that the Davison era would have been vastly improved if it was just Peter Davison and Janet Fielding. Tegan gets something to do other than complain about Heathrow, and Janet Fielding excels in dual roles as Doctor Who companion and Doctor Who villain. Meanwhile, the combination of the boyish Fifth Doctor with the ever so slightly older Todd is one of the great missed opportunities in the history of Doctor-companion pairings. Kinder is a story about spirituality, temptation, colonialism, isolation, toxic masculinity and madness. Fans will always point to the Caves of Androzani as the grittiest and greatest Davison story, but they're wrong. Kinder is the great grown-up Davison story because it stays true to Doctor Who's core ideals, although Androzani and Kinder both have a slightly crap monster in them, let's be honest. Number 7, Spearhead from Space. Shop window dummies coming to life and a wax museum full of corpses. Legendary writer Robert Holmes kicks off his horror movie version of Doctor Who in earnest with his first bona fide classic, Spearhead from Space. Spearhead took the alien invasion blueprint established by the War Machines and added a terrifying extension out of living plastic. The fact that it's all shot on film certainly works in its favour, as it adds a real cinematic sheen to Jon Pertwee's debut serial. This is a very different show to the family sci-fi adventure serial that had aired just 1 year earlier. As Doctor Who shot in colour for the first time, viewers could see the whites of the Auton's victims' eyes and the crimson blood of an unfortunate unit soldier. Without Spearhead from Space, we wouldn't have Russell T Davies's Doctor Who. So influential was this 1970s period on RTD's vision. The recognisable locations, the flashes of abject horror, the focus on everyday people, and the goofy jokes. All of those elements are present in Spearhead from Space in their purest and freshest forms. Doctor Who was on the brink of cancellation before this story, but it's still here 53 years later. That alone guarantees it a top 10 place. Number 6, Remembrance of the Daleks. Remembrance of the Daleks is classic Doctor Who's best anniversary special, and it wasn't even intended as one. By returning to the era of the show's birth, the serial interrogates the nostalgia for the 1960s by revealing the fascist undertones in post-war Britain. It also has an all-timer scene where Sylvester McCoy and Geoffrey from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air discuss the implications of the age-old question, one lump or two? Of course, the Doctor's actually discussing whether to blow up Skaro with the hand of Omega or not. Does it get more Doctor Who than that? Remembrance of the Daleks also substantially upgrades the Daleks by confirming that yes, you did see a hovering Dalek during the Colin Baker era. It also introduces the fearsome Special Weapons Dalek, while establishing Ace as one of Doctor Who's greatest companions by having her batter a Dalek with a baseball bat before jumping out of a window. Remembrance of the Daleks is a big, exciting Doctor Who action movie that interrogates the show's origins while pondering where it's going next. Number 5. The Evil of the Daleks. Although it's mostly lost to time, The Evil of the Daleks is regarded as an undisputed classic of the Troughton era. It's easy to see why, as it's an epic that takes the Doctor and Jamie from Gatwick Airport to Victorian England to Skaro and the chambers of the Emperor Dalek. The Daleks' plan to identify the human factor creates a fascinating ethical dilemma that classic Who rarely explores. The Doctor manipulates Jamie into going along with the Dalek experiments because he can't help his own fascination with how it could all turn out. It's similar to how the Doctor juggles his scientific curiosity with his increasing dread about what happens when the Cybermen are unleashed. It also has the Doctor riding around on a Dalek. Seriously, what's not to love? Arguably, The Evil of the Daleks is the last time Doctor Who did anything interesting with the Daleks. In presenting the Doctor with the opportunity to rehabilitate them, Doctor Who gives audiences one of the very best Dalek stories of all time. And that's why Genesis of the Daleks doesn't feature on this list. Or does it? Yeah, of course it does. Stay tuned, folks! Number 4. The AZTECS. The AZTECS is the finest Doctor Who serial of the William Hartnell era, and the show has struggled to better its portrayal of the ethical dilemmas caused by travelling in time. The massacre is obviously another cracker, but the Doctor and Stephen's confrontation comes at the end. In the AZTECS, the Doctor and Barbara are constantly sparring about whether she should try and save the Aztec people from being wiped out. It's a dark story that still finds time for humour and tenderness through the Doctor's accidental marriage. It also turns Barbara into a goddess, which seems right, actually. Ultimately, the Doctor and Barbara reach a compromise of sorts, which is a testament to the strength of their relationship. The Doctor respects Barbara's ability to change the mind of Ortlock, saving him from the massacre in the process. It's the first time that Doctor Who bends the no interference rule, the prime directive, if you like, allowing for small changes or little victories against the cruelty of history. It's the forerunner to Donna Noble's just save someone policy, and is Doctor Who's finest historical adventure. Number 3. Inferno. As Peter Capaldi's hiatus year of 2016 proved, the world can be an incredibly dark and dystopian place when the Doctor isn't around. Inferno explores this central idea in one of Doctor Who's rare alternate reality episodes. Inferno asks the question of what happens when the Doctor can't save the day, but gets to have its cake and eat it by having the Doctor save the day. Doctor Who had long established that the Doctor can't just pop in the TARDIS and have another go if he fails. By stranding the Doctor in a parallel dimension, Inferno found a creative workaround to give the third Doctor a second chance. It also gives Nicholas Courtney, Caroline John, and John Levine the chance to mix things up by playing their fascist counterparts. While that's become something of a trope since Star Trek's Mirror Universe episodes, it was still a relatively fresh concept in 1970. Inferno is an apocalyptic epic that also works as the third Doctor's Christmas Carol. He starts as Ebenezer Scrooge, grumpy and unwilling to live among humans. Then, having seen just how bad things could be, he becomes the more charming third Doctor we know and love. Number 2. Genesis of the Daleks. Genesis of the Daleks is a classic, but there's far too much running back and forth between the Khaled and Thal camps to make it the undisputed top of the pops when it comes to classic Doctor Who. The standout moment is the fourth Doctor and Sarah's discussion about whether to destroy the Daleks. It's hard to tell given the dystopian future setting of war-torn Skaro, but it's ultimately the same dilemma that faces the Doctor and Barbara in the AZTECS. However, the fact that the Doctor is faced with saving the universe from his greatest enemy means that there's a part of you that, like Sarah Jane, is rooting for the Doctor to destroy the Daleks at their conception. That's a genius concept by writer Terry Nation, which makes up for some of the more overused Doctor Who elements in this serial. The Doctor's observation that we need enemies to make us better is a fascinating idea that continues to be relevant to this day. Of course, the Doctor was never going to commit genocide, and his reasoning for saving the Daleks is sound. Genesis of the Daleks also secured Dalek creator Terry Nation's mortgage payments for another decade, so there's that as well. Number 1. City of Death. If anything sums up the unique appeal of Doctor Who, it's the plot of City of Death. An alien menace plots to destroy life on Earth and funds his villainous plot with mass-produced Mona Lisas. Could any other show get away with telling that story? City of Death is everything you could possibly need from Doctor Who. As well as its high-concept premise, it has laugh-out-loud comedy, a brilliantly designed alien, stunning location work on the streets of Paris, a winning Doctor and companion partnership, time travel, and a guy that really loves punching people in the face. Shows like Star Trek would just settle for Scaroth's time travel plot, but writer Douglas Adams throws in a gallery heist, a commentary on the mass production of art, and resolves the story with the most important punch in human history. City of Death is a complex and sublime work of art, refusing to settle for being one particular type of Doctor Who story. It throws everything in, from bug-eyed aliens in cool spaceships to travelling through time to meet historical celebrity. But above all, it's the greatest Doctor Who story, because it's a breezily confident yet unassumingly perfect example of what makes this 60-year-old show so utterly magical. And that's everything for this list, but make sure you do check out the 10 most hated classic Doctor Who stories and modern Doctor Who stories. I bet you can guess what some of those might be. But in the meantime, I've been Ellie with Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.